It's sectional championship week on Highlight Zone this coming Friday, and that means Justin, Kenny, and I are previewing it all on this week's edition of Inside the Zone. Justin, let's get right to it because we are talking postseason. It is win or go home time. It has been for 2 weeks, but now you're putting a trophy in the trophy case this coming Friday. Heading into this week, we'll start with 6A and go all the way down to 1A, and we'll do it in that order just to make it easy for people who are watching to know where their teams are. But just overall going into this week, is this kind of what you expected as far as the field from Northeast Indiana? Because we do have a few surprises sprinkled in.
Yeah, we do. I looked at Carroll last week, and I said, when I was looking at this section, I said, Penn, that's going to be a tough one. And I thought, okay, if they can handle business against Warsaw, that's when it'll get real against Penn with that experienced veteran defense that the Kingsmen have. But little did I expect the Warsaw Tigers to come out and knock around the Carroll Chargers like they did. And it was an impressive victory in the sense that Warsaw did not attempt a single pass in this football game. Carroll knew exactly what Warsaw was going to do, play after play after play after play. Couldn't stop it.
61 rushes for 298 yards for Warsaw. And like you said, no pass attempts. So let's start in 6A because you've got Warsaw now traveling to Penn.
Yeah.
And again, you know what Warsaw is going to do. They held the ball in that Carroll game the entirety of the third quarter.
Yes.
Like Carroll, not like, oh, they had the ball for, 9 minutes. They held the ball for the entire quarter. It's difficult to score when you don't have the football. They'll try to probably do the exact same thing against Penn this week would be my guesstimation.
I would estimate that Penn knows exactly what Warsaw is going to do, and they got to stop it. And that's the big thing for Warsaw is how far can this running attack take them? How far can Reed Zollinger take them into the postseason? You like the way they played against Carroll. And even, defensively, really kept everything in front of them. And they knew they were controlling the football. They just didn't want to get into a situation where they were going score for score with Carroll. And they were able to get stops when they needed to and allow that Warsaw offense to go to work. So when you look at what the Tigers need to do against Penn, more of the same, pretty much. Keep away from Penn and be able to move the ball consistently against that really stifling, really veteran defense of the Kingsmen.
5A, we've got Northside at Snyder. If you'd have told me this was a sectional championship game at the beginning of the season, I'd have been jacked for it.
Yes.
But it's been a tumultuous year for the Legends, no doubt about it. And Snyder has proven pretty good. I was at the game last week against Anderson. I don't know that we learned anything about Snyder.
Yeah, it's like,
because they forced a 3-and-out. They returned the punt for a touchdown. And in the first 3 drives, Anderson netted 0 total yards. It was -1 on the first drive, -4 on the second, and then 5 yards on the third. It was like, we're almost through the first quarter, and they have
netted 35-0 in a blink.
They netted 0 yards. So obviously a fast start is what they want against Northside to try to put them away early. Northside is going to counter to that. But these teams didn't play in the regular season like we're normally used to. So how do you expect this one to turn out, and what are going to be some of the keys for the Legends to stick around and maybe make this a ball game? Because there is some physical, athletic talent on that side.
You wonder what this extended break for Northside did for them. Were they able to rest, recover, get some guys back, mentally get right, and get the program pointed in the right direction? Or is it just kind of going through the motions and going to end the season with a struggling team on Friday night against Snyder? That's kind of the thing. Northside always seems to get up to play the Panthers, so I think if Northside can take that energy in a positive direction and come out ready to play on Friday, maybe they can hang around. But I think Snyder, with the way they're playing, it's going to be tough for Northside. But you look at this break for North. Has it been good? Has it been bad? We'll find out on Friday.
Yeah, double bye. You just do not see that. I don't know that. You want to get healthy, you want to get things right, but I don't love a double bye.
Right. No, going 3 weeks between games is just not ideal.
High school, you're used to playing every Friday. This is in college. So let's talk a little bit about 4A because this is the sectional that we've looked toward for a long time. And you've got a Leo team coming off an emotional, a great win, a classic win against East Noble, kind of a retribution type of win. And now you're taking on a Bishop Dwenger team who we've seen throughout the course of the season. They're a little inconsistent, but they've stepped up to the plate in recent weeks.
And how about the quarterback play for both of those teams?
Springer's playing well.
Springer's playing really well. You look opposite, and you look at Kyler Decker and throwing all over the field last Friday in a battle between Decker and Xander Brazel that was phenomenal at those two quarterbacks. 9 touchdowns, 0 picks for those two guys combined. I look at this game, and you look at it just comes down to the athleticism and skill of Leo with that really, really good offense coming up and playing up against Bishop Dwenger. And it's not the vintage bruising physical style of Bishop Dwenger that we're used to, but at the same time, they play tough, they play hungry. And you look at this game and you say, okay, which of one of these offenses is able to make more plays? You look at Leo, but then I fall back again on Springer. He's been really good the last 3 or 4 weeks or so for Bishop Dwenger. So traditionally, you'd say, okay, Bishop Dwenger can't get into a track meet with Leo, but I don't know. Bishop Dwenger's been able to put up points, so who knows?
When you take a look at Leo, the Fuller injury hurts, but they've had as you like to say, a cadre of running backs.
A plethora.
Oh, I can't think of any more words. But also, with that injury, they've found more ways to get Caden Hurst the football, whether it's been like Wildcat or jet sweep type stuff. Like, he's gotten the football more, and he has just proven to be. We knew he was a game breaker, but now they're finding other creative ways to get him the football, and that spreads things out for Brock Schott and for the rest of that team.
Does.
Landon Hepner, all those guys. And Mons is doing a good job. Dearius Carter's doing a good job in the backfield. Like, how do you, if you're Dwenger, how do you guard what Leo's got?
What do you do? I mean, you really have to seal the edges and make sure that nobody gets to the outside. You want to keep Caden Hurst in between the tackles, in between the hashes, which is easier said than done.
He threw a touchdown pass.
I mean, he does everything, right? So when you look at this, and Dearius Carter was very impressive last week because you had Aiden Mons that was nursing an injury, and Coach Dorfler decided, hey, we're only going to play him on defense to try to rest him a little bit. He expects him to be back in the offensive backfield this week, but even with Fuller out, you have Mons, you have Carter, you have Hepner. I mean, you have a plethora of guys. Maybe a gaggle of guys.
A pride of Lions.
Yes, a pride of Lions. There we go. So numerous options for Leo. Bishop Dwenger's responsibility is how do we identify all those guys, make sure we're matching up with them, and not allow some big plays.
And I think, if you're conversely playing defense against Bishop Dwenger, you can't let Carter Minix get behind you.
Yes.
Because that dude is proven to be one of the most valuable receivers in the SAC this season.
He is such a phenomenal player in the slot, and you look at guys like that, they're smaller. He's all of 5'9", and built, but he's just a dude that seemingly kind of gets lost in the shuffle, which is amazing to me considering how deadly he is in the open field and downfield. So that is the key thing. He always seems to find ways to get open at some point, and credit to Springer, he's really good at finding them.
Let's talk about 3A because we went into this sectional thinking Heritage had a pretty good path to the sectional championship. They went in 9-1 last week. They were up 6-0 on Garrett. And the Railroaders scored 20 unanswered. In Monroeville.
Yes.
I know we talked a little bit about it last week that we were like, Garrett, 5-5, they're a better team. They're a little bit, I didn't anticipate them winning.
Right.
But I thought they might put up a better, as we alluded to, put up a better fight than some people would have thought. But man, here they are hosting the Delta Eagles, coming off what has been one of the bigger upsets in the playoffs so far for this area.
It was, and I think that was the score on Friday night that all of us were like, wow, okay. And credit to Garrett, and credit to Coach Depew, because talking to Coach Depew over the course of the season, he's like, we got a lot of young kids. We got a lot of young sophomores and juniors, and we feel like if they can learn this year and make some plays, next year we look really good, but they've come around at the right time. And we've seen it at times, beating Lakeland during the regular season.
Really holding them down defensively.
Playing Eastside close in a one-score game, and then seeing that last Friday. The bugaboo, I guess, for Heritage over the course of the season was too many turnovers, and it bit them on Friday because they weren't able to force any, or only force one for Garrett. So for the Railroaders now, you look at, okay, those juniors now playing like veterans, right? Like seniors, right? Sophomores playing like juniors, and they've blossomed at the right time. Now they're playing with confidence. They get Delta at home. So why not the Railroaders at this point?
Why not against the Delta Eagles?
Let's do it.
From Delaware County. Take them down. Let's talk about 2A Sectional 35. A lot of, when we look at the bracket, we were looking forward to that East Side Lures matchup just based on, the history, what we'd seen in the last 4 seasons, now 5 seasons that they've met in the playoffs consecutively. Lures had to hang on and got some good defensive performance in the second half and in the fourth quarter to win 14-10. How do these Knights use that victory going forward, I think, is the question as a blueprint to what they need to clean up if they hope to make a deep run in 2A, as they will take on Manchester on the road this coming Friday.
It's not a vintage Lures team in the sense that, traditionally we say with the really good Lures teams, okay, just make it through the SAC and then it eases up in the 2A playoffs because you're playing up. But Bishop Lures cannot afford to coast. They are not a good enough team in 2A even to look at every opponent and say we're just going to roll through. We saw it against Busco to start off. We saw it against Eastside. credit to that Bishop Luers defense that had to be tremendous, particularly in that second half where Luers did not score a single point. And every time Eastside had the ball, the game could change in a moment if they let a big play happen. So Damian Jackson and Wes Javens and those guys, I mean, we talk so much about Zay and Daring for good reasons, but there's other dudes on that field that really stepped up throughout the season, particularly Friday. And this is another matchup. Once again, you look at it on paper, you go, okay, Bishop Luers should roll.
Yeah.
But this is not a good enough Luers team to just show up and roll people in 2A. They have to be ready to play. We saw Busco give them a scare in round 1. Nobody expected that. So who knows? If Luers comes in thinking, okay, we beat Eastside, we can coast to a sectional title, then Manchester will challenge them.
And all it takes is a couple of early turnovers, and they're in the game at halftime, or if they're in the game in the third quarter, like things
You
can
start
get
getting
dicey.
tighter and tighter, and the other team starts feeling more and more confident.
Because I would pick Central Noble to win last week, even though it was a road game at Manchester, just based on the athletes that they have. Yeah, Manchester won 28-21, so Eddie Fields working his magic.
Yes, sir.
Out in North Manchester. Let's talk a little bit about Bluffton, because this is a team we just wondered a lot about.
Right.
A great regular season, toughened up at the end of the regular season in terms of their schedule, and you take a look at the sectionals and they're going to have to play some teams.
Yeah.
If they win a 2A sectional championship, it isn't going to be easy. They're going to be challenged to a certain degree every Friday night. They passed it against Alexandria on the road, then at home against Eastbrook, who's always a formidable opponent.
Yeah.
And they got up early in that game to kind of put that one away. But when you take a look at the 35-21 score, Bluffton now has to face Eastern, who we all kind of thought we would come through the top half of that bracket.
Right.
How do you see this one playing out in the Parlor City on Friday night? Because Eastern's a good football team.
They are.
They play in a pretty decent, a top-heavy but a decent football conference where they have been tested throughout the regular season.
That's got to be the message from Coach Kunkel this week is people are going to look at Alexandria, one loss, you knocked them off on the road. Eastbrook, a traditional power, right? You knocked them off at home. You cannot overlook the Comets because they're a good enough team that if you show up flat, they'll beat you. And I think that's going to be the message from Coach Kunkel this week. It's interesting when you look at Bluffton 7 times. This will be the 7th time they will be in a sectional championship game in their program's history. 3 of those 7 have happened in the last 6 years, which is pretty phenomenal for Coach Kunkel. That's the level that this program is at. The defense was very good last week. Kamel Moore was superb. That offensive line that's a veteran offensive front. Those things all important going to Eastern on Friday.
I'm not convinced that Bluffton isn't playing its best football right now.
Agreed.
Most complete on both sides in all 3 phases of the game. And that's dangerous, especially when you add Kamel Moore in to give you that X factor, that power back in the offensive backfield.
I mean, there's something to be said about late season losses and how your team handles them. And I think that may have been one of the best things for Bluffton is have that 2-game losing streak and get knocked down. Not just the Adams Central game, but the Heritage game too. Because everybody was so quick to say it was Bluffton right below Adams Central, and then Heritage comes in and rolls them. So that's why I think too, conversely, we'll talk about 1A in a second, is why Michael Mosier is just looking for any type of real to challenge his kids, because they haven't been challenged on the field. You find out a lot about how your kids face adversity. Bluffton has faced adversity and succeeded. Adams Central not yet. But Mosier hopes they don't.
See, that's professional television right there. You led into it. That's like a professional segue.
It's like we sat and planned this out.
It's almost like we thought about this. 1A, you got Adams Central at Madison Grant. Not a surprise when you took a look at the brackets at the beginning of sectional play. But Adams Central just
what do you say?
Just does everything so well. I mean, special team. We saw Roach return a punt a couple weeks ago. Like, there's not a lot of weaknesses on the 1A level specifically for this Adams Central team.
Yeah.
And I was looking at some of their stats Coach Mosier had sent in over the course of the season. Like, I think they've outscored opponents like 471 to like 50. Like,
pretty decent.
I don't know how to analyze this game without saying Adams Central's really, really, really good.
Right.
And I would be surprised if they're not playing at Lucas Oil Stadium, Thanksgiving week this year.
I talked to Coach Mosier last week, and I asked him kind of a similar question to that of like, when you're destroying everybody each week, is how do you find the motivation to keep these guys going? And also, we can look ahead and say, okay, Thanksgiving weekend, but coaches can't afford that. But at the same time, how much do you look and say, okay, we need to take care of certain things to be ready for Lutheran and State? Because you are still looking at that inevitable rematch, round 3, and you say, what's going to help us in those games? And I think you saw that in the regular season with them working on some things, maybe passing a little bit more than they needed to. right? But finding what they need to do when they match up with the Lutheran. But right now, it's just all about, okay, and Coach Mosher has stressed it, like, I just got to keep these guys going. The eye is on the prize of rematch with Lutheran, but we can't overlook any of these games. When you're beating teams by 40, 45, 50 points every week, it can be difficult to make sure these kids are up, but it's a credit to coaching staff. It's a credit to the kids that every week they come out. There's no first quarter where you're like, man, they're looking rusty, or they're struggling, or they're not into it. It's just every week they come out laying the wood. I mean, the only team that really hung around with them in the first half was Bluffton.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And they pulled it away in the fourth quarter. That game was on the road at Bluffton. So, but yes, I was looking at those numbers, and that's the one. They're throwing a little bit more this year, and they're efficient at it. You know, they've hit on big plays in the passing game in years past, but it feels like, I think Jack Hamilton's numbers he's completing 65% of his passes.
Yeah.
And it just feels like even when they had Ryan Black, they were hitting the home run ball, but it was more like 50% passing.
Right.
And now there's just that little added element that when you get, I wondered how much of that was built around their personnel or built around the fact that they might have to throw a little bit against Indy Lutheran if they were to play again in the state championship game.
My biggest thing for what we've seen the first 2 years with Lutheran is defend the pass, and can you pass when the defense knows you're going to pass? And that's what I think we haven't seen with Adams Central is everybody just assumes they're going to run every play, and then when they pass, it catches them off guard. But when they're facing second and long, third and longs at state against Lutheran, when they have to convert against a defense that knows they're going vertical, can they do it? So I think you're seeing lessons over the course of the season to better prepare Adams Central for that, what we think will be round 3 with Lutheran.
Okay, man. What are you most looking forward to about this Friday sectional final night on the Highlight Zone? I mean, this is what you play for. You play to put trophies in the trophy case.
You do. We're lining up some winners on Friday, so looking forward, particularly with that 4A game with Bishop Dwenger and Leo. I think that's going to be a tremendous football game.
Apparently, our analysis has been knocked out.
We
knocked out the gravity.
It's amazing what we do here.
It's so powerful. We've sucked the power source out of here, generate or kick on later. I don't know, but like, I'm just jacked to see what happens. Like at this point, you just kind of want to see who survives and advances because that's the name of the game. You do, and you look at Snyder, and can they make a run? And Warsaw, can they follow up what they did last week against Penn? And Bishop Dwenger and Leo is going to be a dogfight too. What about Bluffton? Can they make it back-to-back sectional championships? I mean, this is really what it's all about this week because everybody wants to win a sectional championship, and now Friday night it's on the line. We will see who does it Friday night on the Highlight Zone, and we'll talk about it and preview regionals next Monday here on Inside the Zone. But for Justin, I'm Glenn. We'll see you next week.